There's insider trading happening within the Senate. In fact, because of this whole coronavirus story, we're learning that as many as 4 US senators, 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat, were briefed on the seriousness of coronavirus months ago. They knew about the seriousness of coronavirus and the severity of the situation months ago. And rather than really tell the American people about that severity, they decided to sell some stocks, maybe because they realized that this would be pretty painful for share prices and they didn't want to take the hit. So they sold quite a bit of stock. Now, one of those individuals is a senator who wasn't elected, but rather appointed. And so let's get to her. And before we do, I want to make sure everyone is fully aware of what the law is. So let's get to that. It's illegal for members of Congress to trade on non-public information gleaned through their official duties. I mention that because I'm seeing a lot of nonsense online about like, no, well, they're US senators, so the law doesn't pertain to them. It certainly does apply to them. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Now let's get to some of these offenders. One of them is Senator Kelly Loeffler, who, again, was not elected. She was appointed. And she reported the first sale of stock jointly owned by her and her husband on January 24th, the very day that her committee, the Senate Health Committee, hosted a private all senators briefing from administration officials, including the CDC director and Anthony Fauci, the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, on the coronavirus. So just to give you a sense of how much she sold, between January 24th and February 14th, Loeffler reported selling stock jointly owned by her with her husband worth over $1 million, $1,275,000, and $3,100,000, according to transaction reports filed with Senate ethics officials. On February 14th, lovely Valentine's Day, she also She also purchased the Citrix stock and another $100,000 to $250,000 in technology company Oracle, which has seen its share price decline by more than 18% since then. Now, I mentioned the 2 stocks that she did purchase because it's technology stock that is very much related to people who work from home, right? So lots of telecommunication stuff going on there. You would expect, based on the information that she was given during that briefing, that if people are going to be forced to work from home, then they're going to rely on some of that technology, and some of that, share prices are going to go up. Some of those share prices are going to go up. So John, there's a lot more to this, but I want to hear what you think so far about this criminal insider trading.
Yeah. I obviously I have a lot of thoughts. I agree. Biggest story of the day. That last angle, I'm not 100% sure on. If it was, a briefing back in January, would they have known for sure that there would be this like nationwide lockdown? I don't know. I think that the sales probably say more in an obvious fashion than the purchases. It's definitely it seems like a massive coincidence if she and other senators just like they decided to do all their trading right around then. And anyway, look, the whole point is to have an investigation. Like we have access to some amount of information from their required disclosures. There is more information that could be gathered by some sort of commission that should look into her and Burr and a number of others, because I doubt dozens of senators left that room. 2 of them ran to log on to Fidelity, and the rest were like, so who wants a sandwich? Like, it was probably more widespread. And
Yes.
Very importantly, I would see, did they communicate with other people and advise them? I mean, in the case of Burr, we know about that like luncheon or whatever it was, the VIP group. Did others communicate with people that they knew? Did they give them tips? I fear that this probably goes wider than just a handful of senators.
I absolutely agree. And I want to be clear about one other thing. I don't care about the political ideology of any of these people. Dianne Feinstein is also implicated in all of this. And I agree, there should be a full investigation. That's how our system is supposed to work. I'm not saying like consequences without an investigation, but this certainly looks to be insider trading. And I think that every single senator who is present for these types of briefings should be looked into, right? Just to see like what their financial reports indicate. So let me give you some more details. And maybe once I give a fuller picture, you'll understand why I feel so strongly about this possibly being criminal activity. So one of Loeffler's two purchases was stock worth between $100,000 and $250,000 in Citrix. Again, that's a technology company that offers teleworking software and which has seen a small bump in its stock price since Loeffler bought in as a result of coronavirus influenced market turmoil. Now, the 15 stocks that Loeffler reported selling have lost more than a third of their value on average since she reported offloading them. She initially reported many of the transactions as sales of stock owned by her husband. Last week, she amended the filing to note that most of them were jointly owned. So I wonder why she was withholding that information initially. Again, there's a lot of fishy stuff going on. Now, while it appears that she knew about the seriousness and the severity of coronavirus because, she wanted to protect her finances from the implications, publicly, she was saying very different things. Okay. So she was not informing the public of that severity. In fact, she was, in many occasions, defending Donald Trump's handling of the situation. Let's go to this next video because it shows, a statement that she made publicly on March 10th. Take a look.
First of all, I want to commend this administration, the president, the vice president for leading such a strong response. Everything from travel bans, travel advisories, to screening that's underway that has really slowed this spreading to America. We talked in the meeting today about some additional responses that the administration is looking to take to make sure that consumers are protected, that we have all the medical testing that we need, and that the economy stays strong. The good news is the consumer is strong, the economy is strong, jobs are growing. Our president has done a fantastic job making sure that we're in the best position to manage through this situation.
Yeah, the president's doing such a fantastic job. I mean, he rejected testing kits that we desperately need. He downplayed coronavirus and how rapidly it spreads to the point where people were in, just out and about, not taking it seriously because the president wasn't taking it seriously. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, great response. She's
Well,
just.
and also the difference between the public statements and what she's doing behind the scenes. She's like, okay, we're live. Okay, he's doing a great job. Everything's gonna be fine. I'm just looking forward to 2020. It's gonna be great. Okay, dump the stocks, buy me property on top of a mountain, and get me the biggest gun you can. Like that's effectively what she was, as far as we know, was doing behind the scenes. And that's the part of my frustration is that like I've been saying, we've been talking about this for a very long time on the damage report, and we've been following the development of the way the media and the Trump administration has been talking about it since it started to be an issue for the United States. And because he and all of these Republicans were so actively dismissive, like disdainful towards people who were pitching it as a potential problem. Sean Hannity now is he's saying he wants to help out Cuomo. Like he has this massive guilty conscience for calling it over and over again a hoax. He must feel horrible about that now, justifiably so. We want some sort of consequences, I think. A lot of people who feel like they allowed this to develop to where it's at, and they're not going to suffer any consequences. And so I think one of the reasons that this insider trading story has taken off is because it feels like, oh, this is an inroads to something actually being done. Them simply not doing their job, they're legally allowed to do that. The Constitution has no problem with them allowing Americans to die because of their inaction. But if we can get them on the stock trading, then maybe that's something. Which is why, just briefly, I would say, how about we come up with some sort of compromise? How about this? They don't go to jail. And they pass a law banning all stock ownership from members of the House and the Senate forever. No exceptions. You can't own stock.
I want both. I want them in prison. If after a
Okay,
full
that'll be the starting position.
Yeah, and look, you get into the details and it's just so obvious. And this is based on the limited information that we have. By the way, she was supposed to provide the full scope of her, finances, including her activity within the trade, within the stock market. And she applied for an extension. So I'm also very curious about that. But, just to give you another statement that she made publicly, she said, it's amazing. So right after that briefing in January, she went on Twitter and said the following: Appreciate today's briefing from the president's top health officials on the novel coronavirus outbreak. These men and women are working around the clock to keep our country safe and healthy.
Yeah.
No, they're not. I mean, there might be some individuals. Trump was not working around the clock.
Yeah.
Trump thought of this as a PR issue. Kushner thought of this as a PR issue. They thought of it as a problem for Trump's image. They did not really think about the ramifications, the consequences, the lives that would be lost due to their inaction and their incompetence.
Yeah.
And so that's, look, there's the health component of this. It didn't have to get as bad as it's become if they had taken the correct action from the beginning. But then there's also like this anger that I know I personally feel about how everything just happened so quickly, right? All of this like social distancing stuff, things shutting down, the supermarkets getting swamped. Like average Americans didn't get an opportunity to prepare. And these people knew for months about what would happen and how serious this was. And they were certainly able to take care of themselves financially.
Yeah. Yeah. As Trump's messaging around it was developing, we were pointing that out. Now lots of people are like trying to like putting together montages of what Trump said over the course of a couple of months to like point out like, hey, we were saying this was wrong at the time. He was ignoring it, trying to convince people of that. But honestly, we don't even have to look in the past. He just earlier today was saying in terms of the ability of the federal government to purchase and distribute ventilators, masks, and things like that. He said, yeah, we're not in supply chains, okay? We're not distributing that stuff. Governors really need to step up and do that. Like today, he still feels like, okay,
Yep.
I have to pretend like I care about this, but come on, we're not going to get into like, sending supplies around so people don't die. That's a bridge too far.
It's so frustrating. And by the way, governors are angry because they're being outbid by the federal government as they're trying to obtain some of these, medical devices, things that their state needs in order to treat people with coronavirus. And it's so infuriating. But let's talk a little bit about what her reaction has been to some of the backlash. And by the way, she's not the only one. I'm focusing on her because she's the latest case and it's just so egregious. Like she denies any wrongdoing. She offers no apologies. She should be gone by now. She should not be in Senate. She should have stepped down, but instead she remains defiant and says, this is a ridiculous and baseless attack. I do not make investment decisions for my portfolio. Investment decisions are made by multiple third-party advisors without me or my husband's knowledge or involvement. Yeah, not buying it at all because the timing is way too much of a coincidence. But more importantly, it's hard to make that argument when your husband is literally the person who runs the New York Stock Exchange. I'm not even kidding. Okay, so the Atlanta businesswoman, according to the Daily Beast, whose husband is the chairman and CEO of the New York Stock Exchange, has a fortune estimated at $500 million. In fact, when she was appointed to the Senate, she automatically set the record for the richest lawmaker.
Jesus. See, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. Disgusting.
Yeah.
So I do want
really fast. What additional thing there? So she says they made the decisions. I didn't say anything. Okay, but that is what an investigation will uncover. We're going to look in. We're going to see, were there phone calls? Were there messages? We have to look at a very narrow range of dates. Was there communication with these individuals? Put them under oath. Question them about it and find out, because we are talking about serious crimes. It's not just some sort of political thing. This is 100% illegal. You can investigate to find out. And so far, I've seen, like people saying, including AOC and even Tucker Carlson, saying that like Burr should step down and Loeffler should as well. But let's get the wheels moving on an actual investigation. They can definitely start that.
I totally agree. I definitely want to see that investigation. And, we talked about Burr a little bit yesterday, but just for people who might have missed that story, the Center for Responsive Politics reported Thursday that Senator Richard Burr, a Republican who chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee, sold between $500,000 and $1.5 million in stock in February, shortly before markets tanked and before Burr privately warned of the havoc that coronavirus posed, right? So he, had that meeting with the wealthy donors, and that was when he warned his wealthy donors about it. But publicly, he did not warn average Americans about the seriousness or the severity. And as I had mentioned earlier, these two are not the only senators who are suspected of insider trading. John is right. There should be a full investigation. Senator Dianne Feinstein is the only Democrat on the list so far. And then you have Senator Jim Inhofe and Senator Ron Johnson, who says that he has a good explanation for his sale of stocks. But I want to see an investigation to this. I want to see disclosures from every other senator that was involved in those briefings, because any average American who did the same, who participated in insider trading, would be prosecuted immediately, no questions asked. For all of the people out there, including, left independent media outlets that are, just urging them to resign, great, but we should demand more than that, right? Because far too often, if there's criminality here, people in positions of power get away with it. They don't get prosecuted. And I'm tired of it. This is unacceptable. Not only did they put the lives of Americans at risk, they also put the finances of Americans at risk and, did all this criminal stuff behind the scenes to enrich themselves, if it's proven after an investigation. So that's the bulk of the story. And
can I just say, we're all looking for things to like make us smile these days, and waking up and seeing your response to her, like her tweet, and your response was just prison.
I know. No, she's just ridiculous. Like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm a really wealthy Georgia businesswoman, but like, I'm dumb. I don't know what's happening with my stocks. Come on. I don't. We'll maybe I'm being unfair. I don't think so. But let's just do the investigation and find out what's going on. We should demand more than just resign.